What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, is Callum Wiggins.
That's not a fitting introduction, Tony. It has to be, as featured on Raw and SmackDown, Tony Mango.
Yeah, if you guys hadn't seen on the Mega Maniacs or my other social media and stuff, that NXT article I wrote up for Bleacher Report recently was posted on the little shout-out section of Raw and SmackDown. I was like, shit, yeah. So I'm taking over a little bit by little bit, and if the ratings pop, it's because of me entirely. And pretty soon, I'm going to steal Brock Lesnar's line, and it's going to be Monday Night Raw featuring or starring Tony Mango, and you're all going to have to like it.
Well, it can't be any worse.
Yeah, very cool that happened. What we're doing here today, we're doing the 2019 September mailbag questions that you guys had submitted, and obviously not every single one of them because we don't have all the time in the world for all that stuff, but the vast majority of, the bulk of what everybody's questions were and stuff. Some of them we're holding off on because 20-something questions here and there about the idea of, like, what's happening with Hell in a Cell, or what do you think's going to happen with the draft, and some other things that we're going to get into next week and the week after that, and we're kind of holding off the discussion a little bit on that so we can have more to talk about on those podcasts and other future kind of topics like that. But we're more interested in the oddball questions and some of the things that are maybe not necessarily inside the pro wrestling scope. So, as always, everybody, make sure that you chime in with your thoughts in the comment section below, whether you're answering the questions or just responding to our answers. So do that on YouTube, and if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, ring that little bell for notifications, hit the like button on the video as well, and leave a comment. And then that especially applies to the people on the audio-only platforms like iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and Google Play. If you're listening to us over there, that's great. Leave a rating or a star ranking or whatever it is. But if you want to chime in on the discussion, you got to go over to someplace like a YouTube for that. We'll talk more plugs a little bit later on because plugs are always a thing. But let's get into the first question that we've got going on here. And that is from Rachel Miller, which is, back when John Laurinaitis was in charge of the WWE Talent Relations Department, he hired mainly bodybuilders, ex-football players, and models, but when Triple H took over for Laurinaitis, he mainly hired wrestlers from TNA, ROH, Shimmer, Shine, New Japan, and other indie pro wrestling promotions. So what's the story on how Triple H took over for Laurinaitis back in 2012? To be honest, I have no real idea. And I thought about that. I was like, you know what? I don't remember when they officially had some kind of a switch over with that. Did it kind of happen with NXT?
I don't believe it happened with NXT. As far as I know about it, and I can't say that I have a deep and detailed knowledge of it, essentially the talent relations department just passed over to Stephanie McMahon at one point. When that was essentially a role passed over to her, I think when she stopped being in charge of the creative side of things. She was essentially handed the reins of the talent relations department and subsequently handed that over to Triple H. And Triple H wasn't a John Laurinaitis guy. So he loses power, he drops down the rankings, he eventually gets replaced, and then he still works for the company, but I would struggle to tell you in what capacity.
Because Mark Carrano does some of that stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he's probably more on terms of like face-to-face with the talent. I'd assume that in John Laurinaitis' role as the executive head or the executive vice president, I think it was at the time of talent relations, he wasn't actually doing a lot of the face-to-face work. He was just overseeing that side of things. I mean, I could be completely wrong in that assessment, but I imagine with Triple H having NXT and a lot of other responsibilities on his hands, it probably falls to a few people under his wing to do most of the face-to-face stuff.
Yeah, it might not even be necessarily that, like, talent relations is the same way that it used to be. It might just sort of be lots of people taking on little aspects of that job or something.
What is
like somebody like Triple H coming in and being like, all right, I want to bring this person in for the Mae Young Classic, for instance. And then like a Mia Yim, she gets signed from that. And I don't know if that's necessarily like going through somebody the way that it would with like JR or Pritchard or JJ Dillon or like any of the people that would have been on like that producer side as much anymore.
No, it is an interesting tactic of doing it. I just don't think that in the past they would ever invite the idea of somebody coming in on a part-time schedule in that regards. I think obviously they had working relationships with other promotions, and they would bring people for dark matches and things of that ilk.
Enhancement talent, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't imagine they would do it in such a massive format, especially when there's the risk that they won't come back, or there's not even an intention really to sign them. I mean, they had Tessa Blanchard appear in one of the first Mae Young Classic, and she was eliminated in the first round, and has now tore things up in Impact Wrestling, and that was a missed opportunity. But they brought in people like Mia Yim off the back of other tournaments, Tony Storm, people along those lines. So it seems to be effective. I think Triple H's approach of signing people that have experience from the independent circuit is working better than John Laurinaitis' approach of signing people that look good but had to be taught from the ground up. But each side's a bit quirky, because JR had that fascination with like football players, and some of those work out, some of those don't. And Triple H just had a few ones that have worked out, or quite a few that have worked out, but some of them that haven't. Like the original Sin Cara is probably the most damning situation for that, because I mean that was his first one, so he made a bad first impression, but made up for it with like Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa and all those other people.
Yeah, for every like Hideo Itami, there's like 3 or 4 people in NXT that really makes up for it.
Yeah.
So whether that's his call entirely or there's other people in the mix or something like that, I don't know if anybody's ever actually fully clarified, and it'd be curious to see when, like, a couple years from now or so, we get some kind of, like, tell-all books or people join podcasts or whatever it is where they can kind of clarify a little bit more of that, and maybe we'll find out that there are some behind-the-scenes things that seem a little chaotic, or maybe it's a hell of a lot more organized than we really even think that it is, but I kind of get this impression, at the very least, that it's sort of like the talent relations department is less of like one guy is signing a whole bunch of people, and it's more so, hey, Regal, go out there and scout people, and hey, Finley, you know anybody? Like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like it's got like a whole network and a whole department associated with it, that people do different roles for different points in time. I kind of feel like, in terms of just the impression that I get, it's a very, I don't say sterile, but like sanitized environment where it goes through a lot of checks and processes. Whereas in the past, it was probably more a case of, I like the look of that guy, let's bring him in quickly.
Be like, that guy's big, sign him. Now it's like, well, what does he do?
Although,
what can he do?
Although maybe nowadays we'll start seeing a trend towards that again, because now there's more competition out there to get the signings in.
Yeah, now it might just be like, the quicker the better. Bring them in so nobody steals them, or I don't know. It's going to be a weird time of wrestling for the next like 2-3 years, I think. And a lot of things might change for the better. A lot of things might change for the worse. I'd be curious if the talent relations side of things does get into some other kind of weird shenanigans. Let's move on to Howard's question. How fun would it be if the Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy team arrived in WWF in 1995-1996 cartoon era with the other occupational gimmicks? Do you think he would have fit in? And what was the reason the cartoon era ended after a few years? I honestly don't think that they would fit in, oddly enough. The way I could see that being... well, there's that too. I could see them being, and this sounds really ridiculous, but go with me on this, too silly for even back then. Because it is strange that, yeah, why would they be too silly when you've got Duke the Dumpster Drosy and Mantar and all this? But I kind of think that Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy would kind of be looked at as like, okay, these are the jobber people and we're not going to do anything with them. Whereas now, they're so silly and so over the top that it's meta. And that's what's kind of fun about it, is you do have, like, the majority of the people on the AEW roster are just guy in trunks or guy in tights. And when you've got somebody coming out there as Luchasaurus, you're like, what the fuck is this? And then he starts working and you're like, this is actually kind of fun. All right, I dig it. It's a good separation from the Kip Sabians and the Hangman Adam Pages, where they're just a guy. And you put them in that era, I don't think that Jungle Boy would really stand out compared to The Undertaker and Doink the Clown and the more over-the-top gimmicks that actually still worked?
No, they would just be one of another number of teams that have a weird occupational gimmick associated with them, rather than being in an environment like AEW, like you say, where they can stand out because everyone else has a very more natural, it's more just an extension of their own personality. It's their character. Whereas these guys are like really catch your eye because they're portraying characters. In terms of why the cartoon era died after a few years, well, there's probably one universal reason in that it sucked. And and Howard, I know, sends in a lot of questions from this sort of time, so he's probably a fan of it. I know Rob is a fan of this new generation time of it, but realistically, if you go back and watch it and you look at what it almost did to the business, which is, kill the WWF, and we might not even be, if they'd have maintained it for any longer than they did, we'd probably be talking about, what's the next thing coming up on Nitro this week instead of what's happening in WWF, because legitimately it would have killed their business. They had to change in order to survive.
Well, you get into the late 90s, 2000s type of range and just pop culture in general. The 80s had a different feel to it, and the early 90s was kind of like a mashup between the two, where even just like clothing and branding and everything in the 90s, you had like this like teal and multicolored tie-dye type, like not tie-dye, that's more like 60s and whatever, but like it's all like vibrant and
it's more luminescent
and,
in the 80s.
Yeah, and like you kind of still had that spillover, but you were starting to lean towards something else, and it started to be more like, let me have a little bit of edge and let me be cooler. And the way that like cartoons and stuff were changing, like South Park became a huge thing, and that was edgier, and it wasn't as much about like the wholesome TV shows. It was getting a little bit more on the raunchier side of things, and nowhere near as much as it is like now on some of the things. Like most popular show on TV is Game of Thrones, and it's like there's just like incest and rape and all this like murder and all this stuff, and you're like, Jesus Christ, like imagine doing that back when George Bush Sr. was saying that The Simpsons was ruining everybody because it has Bart say, "Don't have a cow, man," and like that switch over made it to where WWF wasn't cool anymore because they were gimmicky and they were cartoony and they were childish in that kind of regard, and it used to work. And you could have somebody come out there as Earthquake and stomp around, and it was like, whoa, he's the big bad Earthquake. And then eventually it was like, he's just a big dude. Why can't he just be John? I think that the cool factor killed it, where once something becomes cool and you can start looking at other things as babyish in comparison, then you gotta change. Yeah.
Yeah, WCW at the time was cool because they had made the transition away from the super gimmicks and the occupational characters and transformed into people like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall coming in and basically playing a accelerated version of their own personality, which was a bit more in your face and more edgy for the time. And then WWF was able to just capitalize on that and beat it because they had Stone Cold and The Rock.
Yeah, DX comes in, and they're, instead of Triple H being Hunter Hearst Helmsley, the aristocrat who dabs his face with a napkin, he's suddenly Triple H. He's going to tell you to suck his dick. It's like quite a bit of a difference, you know? It's such a weird phrase to say, but that's true.
Mm.
It's good. Michael. Oh, wait, actually, real quick, Howard had suggested if you guys were thinking about looking at something else to switch over from 2001 to do 1984.
1980. I mean, that's it's a fairly pivotal year. That's the year that's the year Hogan wins the title, right?
Yeah, I don't know how you'd be able to actually get all like the footage and like watch it all and do all that, as much of the research and stuff.
Yeah, because that's the year before pay-per-view for WWF, because obviously WrestleMania is their first big super event, and that's the year after. So it would be interesting to do. But I'm kind of, I have a few ideas banding around. I'm trying to move away from the puns on film titles genre and maybe move into something a little bit more general.
Oh,
But
that is a book. So
it was a film as well.
yeah, probably TV series at some point. Yeah,
Is it?
1984 is the thing.
Yeah, if it's a book, I haven't read it, so
Yeah.
I know it was a book. First of all, don't knock me off for being an idiot or something along those lines. just because I'd rather see it in a visual format.
Somebody else would be like, it was a year first. Technically not, because the book came out before the year. So
Yeah.
there you go. Imaginary person who left that comment. Now they're not going to, and they're going to delete it. Gotcha.
It was a number first, bozo.
Yeah. There was 1,984 of something at some point.
I prefer 1,983 better.
Yeah. You have to do the first 1983 and then continue on afterward, and it's going to follow the same pattern as all those other jokes. Let's go to Michael P. What is your favorite botch of all time, whether a missed move or screwed up promo, etc.? Mine has to be the Shockmaster. Just the context of what happened and how it completely killed the gimmick is just too hilarious. I mean, the Shockmaster is very easily one of the top best ones of all time. That is just pure amazing on so many levels. You got the stupid costume, which who the fuck decided that would work? Let's just paint a stormtrooper helmet glittery and put like a shawl around this dude and wear jeans like that. That already was done. And then you build this whole idea of the Shockmaster is going to break through and he falls and the helmet falls off and you can hear in the background, I told him, and people laughing. And if that's not maybe the best botch of all time, I don't know what would be the next contender.
It's definitely I think the most famous botch of all time.
Yeah.
And it should always be remembered as that. There are many, many, many great wrestling botches, but that stands head and shoulders above pretty much any other one.
There's some great moments if you look at just like Botchamania, I mean, every week there's some funny things and stuff, but like there's the Hulk Hogan, we coming for you. Like that thing was great. The sign falling and Mean Gene doing the promo, that was great. Two that stand out to me though, about the same person that I always find hilarious and I always laugh at are when Sid says, I got half the brains that you do to Kevin Nash. And I love when he's doing the promo and he's just like, we got to do this again. We're live, pal. That's so great. Oh, another one that just popped in my mind when Hawk pops up in the middle of the interview in the background.
Oh yeah. I think I've seen a few. There's been a few of them. I can't remember too many specific ones, but I remember there was one where there was some sort of backstage fight going on, and just a guy comes out from the side through one of the doors, and he has to just step back afterwards because he realizes he's in the middle of a fight.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think there's been a few instances like that. I mean, some of them that stick to mind. You mentioned Kevin Nash. The look at the adjective play. That's. He's just so hilarious. There's one that I remember from when I was starting watching wrestling. There was a match at Bad Blood in 2003 between Test and Scott Steiner. And Scott Steiner's always fun for these type of things. Like I think when he debuted at Survivor Series, they told him you can hear him over the house microphone say, "Give me a fucking mic."
Yeah.
And he just picked that up. So like right at the start of this match, Scott Steiner's going to do a dive to the outside. Not like through the ropes or anything, because he was pretty old at that point in time, but like from the apron, he was just going to do like a double axe handle onto Test. And he slips as he's about to do it, and so he just falls at Test's feet. He has to just like double leg him and take him down afterwards. It's just, that's so Scott Steiner. And I mean, there's some other great ones. The Yappa Pie strap match. Like, was it? Yeah, Yappa Pie for Hulk Hogan's one with Ric Flair. Yeah, there's so many. It's hard to really just pick too many of them. Oh, another great one is the Eddie Guerrero on top of the ladder calling for Vicky.
Oh yeah. Where's Vicky?
I love it because on the DVD and I think on network version they've cut it down because obviously it's just you have to go into find the actual original version of the pay-per-view on like Daily Motion or something where he's just there for a good solid 3 or 4 minutes. On the one where a similar one to that is when Mark Henry tries to take the door off the steel cage. I think it was the
Yeah,
match
it's
Batista was having, and it
on
takes about
SmackDown.
and it takes him about 2 or 3 minutes to actually rip, because they didn't gimmick the cage door properly, so you had to legitimately rip a steel cage door off its hinges, which is just bravo to him. He is definitely the world's strongest man. But botches are amazing.
There's Papa Shango missing his
Uh,
WrestleMania cue, and that having to be a whole big mess. There's like serious ones that are not like as funny, but like even kind of funny like in retrospect now that it's not like as big of a problem. But like Lesnar with the shooting star press,
oh yeah.
or like when uh Undertaker jumps out at WrestleMania 25, and I think it's Snuka as the cameraman like barely catches him, if
What
at all.
does it count as a botch with Undertaker coming through his entrance and getting caught on fire in the
Oh
process?
yeah, like there's that. There's
I've
uh
one that I heard about actually only recently, and like another thing that I was listening to is there was a match in WCW in 2000, which is obviously a botch in itself, really, but Mike Awesome against, I don't know if it was one of the members or a lot of the members of the Insane Clown Posse, and this was when he was doing his 70 guys gimmick and he was touring around on a bus, and he power bombs one of the ICP guys on top of the bus, and he just slides off the side and he falls 12 feet to the floor. It's just like you see it happening, because he hits it and you can see him slide off. So Mike Awesome, who's just power on the guy, has to try and reach over to try and grab him to stop him from falling over, and he can't get there in time. It's just there's quite a lot of scary ones like that.
Promo ones tend to be some of my favorite, because it's like there's always like if somebody botches something in the ring, like I mean obviously it's not like
As
funny if
dangerous
somebody
that,
gets
yeah.
hurt, and like some of them are pretty scary, like when Candice Michelle fell and hit her head and it was just like her legs twitching, like that's
Yeah,
like,
Sid.
oh shit.
Yeah, Sid jumping off and breaking his leg.
Oh god, yeah, that one's terrible. But when Hulk Hogan is doing the whole Silverdome thing, like that was hilarious. And
Good Lucha thing, obviously.
oh my god, good Lucha thing. That's definitely one of the best. Even better, the fact that he's like, damn it. Now we can't really make as much fun about the Jeff Harvey thing, now that we know that
Yeah.
his whole situation was like, a medical problem, but like at the time, that was hilarious when we didn't know. So I think that the promo ones are great, and some of them aren't even like botches. Like I mean, like the Scott Steiner being Scott Steiner with
Yeah.
promos is not a botch. He's just insane. So that's just perfect as it is, and if that's a botch, it's a botch as far as like how his brain works. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, because I just don't know. I don't think you can count the 2/3 promo
Right.
as a botch, because I think that he thought it was going well.
Yup. Like the math is fucking wild and crazy, but it's like that's probably how it was written, so it's not a botch technically.
Yeah.
So there's a great. If you have any other suggestions of some other botches in particular, drop a comment below. Tell us some different ones that you remember. They're always fun to look at. Another one from Michael P. If you had to change the outcome of one WrestleMania main event, what would it be? His would be WrestleMania 16, with the final two being Triple H and Mick Foley. He wanted Mick Foley to win the title one last time. I very easily, when I thought about this, the first thing that came on my mind, Roman Reigns beats Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania 34. You just end that shit and you don't drag it out for Greatest Royal Rumble and SummerSlam and all that nonsense. You just end it there.
Yeah, that's a decent option. I'd probably go. There's quite a few that could be worth changing. I think with John Cena and The Rock the first time, it probably John Cena should have won.
Yeah, I can see that.
Left it there. I can
After
understand.
once in a lifetime.
Yeah, I can understand why I did it again, because it's probably one of the few money matches that existed at that point in time. I just thought you could have tried something with someone different the next year. I mean, 29's the one that Punk famously got his match with The Undertaker moved further down the card, so he could have gotten a WrestleMania moment like that. But there's a few other ones, like Bam Bam Bigelow versus Lawrence Taylor. I wouldn't have it exist. So, or maybe put the title match as the main event and have that as a special attraction beforehand. There's plenty of other few. Most of them actually go off pretty well. I mean, I would change WrestleMania 2000, not in the way that Michael's done it, but just a one-on-one match between Triple H and The Rock wins. I don't see. I understand why Triple H won because it's Triple H, but not the reasoning behind it doesn't make sense. Especially because The Rock won the title the next episode.
Big Show and the Mick Foley side of things maybe have like those two against each other or something.
Mm.
I wasn't watching at the time, so I don't really know like the context.
Well, Foley was retired by that point. Well, he was supposed to be retired, so he retired at the No Way Out beforehand. That was the big Hell in a Cell match between him and Triple H, and they decided to bring him back for the Fatal 4-Way because they was. I don't know if they were struggling to sell tickets, but they just wanted to make it. And essentially, the main event became it's not about the actual wrestlers; it's about the McMahon family. And so we need a McMahon in every corner. So we need 4 people. So let's give Mick Foley the other one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think initially they wanted it to be Jericho, but they decided against it in the end.
Who was the one that was partnered with Mick? Was it
Linda?
Linda? Yeah. So you need somebody sympathetic in that regard.
Yeah, probably.
Would you replace the Hulk Hogan Yokozuna thing? Would you just have it be Yoko beats Brett?
Again, in that one, it's weird that Yokozuna's beating Bret Hart in the main event of WrestleMania because at that point in time, you would likely still see babyfaces winning this stuff. But in terms of everything that played out and the reasons why it was done, it was pretty much pointless for Hogan to win the title that time. So yeah, probably out of the 2 options, I probably would go Yokozuna win. In terms of something else maybe change with the previous year's one, WrestleMania 8, I would have Sid be the babyface in that match.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. Their philosophy behind booking that is so ass backwards.
Well,
he is definitively the babyface in that Royal Rumble spot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I understand why they did the way it did because, Hulk Hogan's involved. So
Hogan must pose.
Yeah.
Let's go to Terry Phillips. If you could work with any former host of Smack Talk, as there have been many in the years, who would it be and why? I've worked with all of them, so I can't really answer that question. It's really to follow me. But...
Well, I kind of took the assumption of this one is like if you had to work with them day to day, like in an actual job. See, I would immediately go to you because you're organised and you do shit properly. So it's like, I mean, other people that would probably go into that, like Kalen always struck me as someone who is very efficient at doing that side of things. Rob's obviously a hard worker, so he would get involved in that side of things, and he's always keen to pitch in. He's very enthusiastic. Wago would be a laugh at the very least. Like, I don't know how much shit we get done, but it'd be fun to have around.
I think another one that probably, if we were talking like working like some kind of office job or something, I think that Braden would be able to pull that off pretty well.
Oh, well, I'm unfamiliar. So
there's been a lot of people that have been a part of Smack Talk over the years for little guest spots. And
you're most familiar with Dace. How would he be in an office environment?
Dace is actually surprisingly reserved in an office environment.
Oh.
You would think it would be totally opposite.
Yeah, because I think just like the guy who's actually been in the ring, I would imagine he'd have be a bit more exuberant.
Dace is like very reliable, responsible, kind of like clock in, clock out, kind of like, and then you get him out on his own and it's just kind of like insanity.
Not Drew though. Drew, no. Drew's right at the bottom of this. Him and Sean are right next to each other.
Poor Drew. Love that kid.
Yeah, same here, but you gotta get some work done at the end of
Let's see what else we got here. Let's go to Peter's questions, some of his that he had sent our way. Do you think that hot dogs and tacos are sandwiches? They are 100% sandwiches, and I don't know how these are discussions all the time.
I think anything between... Well, the difference with the hot dog, I think, is when I think of a sandwich, it's something between 2 slices of bread. Whereas a hot dog bun is usually just one big piece of bread that's got a hinge on it. Maybe that's the one thing that prevents it from being a sandwich, but it's by its basic definition of a sandwich is something between bread. It's a sandwich.
I look at it this way. If you've got a hot dog bun and it breaks off, it's now 2 slices of bread. Does that difference qualifier make it to the point where if you were eating a hot dog and you took a bite and the hinge was still intact, that it's not a sandwich and you take a bite and it breaks off, now suddenly you're eating a sandwich. Nah, you've been eating a sandwich from the beginning. 2 slices of bread effectively makes anything a sandwich, even if it's something that shouldn't be eaten as a sandwich. Like, you take a pile of wood chips and you put it in between 2 slices of bread. You're eating a wood chip sandwich there, pal. You shouldn't, but it's a sandwich. And it's like, as long as there is a bread vessel, it is a sandwich. Whether it's a meatball sandwich, or it's a gyro, or it's a I don't even know what. Here's the difference qualifier too. Now, taco is not bread, but it is a bread substitute, so it counts as, I'm thinking, because if you were to replace the taco shell with bread and have the same stuff on the inside, you're basically eating the same sort of thing. But it all depends on if you eat it by like holding the thing and eating all of the stuff on the inside. You can't get like a chunk of garlic bread and dip it and then take a bite and say, oh, okay, well, that's a sandwich. No, you just dipped bread. And if you break a taco apart and you eat it with a fork, it's not a sandwich anymore. If you cut up a hot dog without a bun, it's not a sandwich. But I think that's what most scholars would qualify.
Yeah, in a real truly philosophical debate, I'm assuming that's what they would come to the conclusion of.
Yeah, if Aristotle were in this era and he were debating tacos and hot dogs, I'm pretty sure he'd say they're sandwiches.
Yeah.
And this is the type of stuff that I would love to get into on a deeper level if we were to ever do Snack Talk. And if you want us to do Snack Talk at some point in the future, maybe a special episode of the All Talk Show or something like that, hit up that Patreon on Smark Out Moment or on Fanboys Anonymous. I don't have one specifically for the All Talk Show or whatever like that, but maybe I will in the future. I don't know. But if you want us to do stuff like that and you want us to do more outside the box, wacky kind of material, then if you donate $1 or $5 or whatever towards our way, we can get that stuff going. We can even do some specific things if you donate to that particular tier, just like Guest 5 did with the Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan tracks that we recently did. And if you're interested in anything else like that for Smark Out Moment with the wrestling stuff or oddball stuff or the Fanboys Anonymous stuff, head up to Patreon. Now, another question here from Peter. What is your favorite superhero team? Now, you're not all that much into superheroes in comparison, but
Definitely
do you
not
have a
compared
team?
to you. I don't know if this one counts, because to me they're classed as superheroes, but I know they don't really feature in comics or that sort of things. Power Rangers.
I'd count them.
Yeah, I'll go with the original Power Rangers and the Power Rangers in Space franchise, because they were kind of my groups. I would also put into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, they definitely count too.
Yeah, and potentially, I mean, the Avengers is kind of now is the big thing. My most familiarity with the Avengers, because I don't really watch too many of the Marvel movies, is the ones that appeared in the Spider-Man TV series that was on Fox and that stuff.
The crossover with like the X-Men and Fantastic Four and all that.
Yeah, that was the sort of one that I connected with the most. And even though the movie sucks, I like the concept of the Suicide Squad.
And that's where things get kind of tricky, because the Suicide Squad is so fun for these like one-shots and for these Elseworlds type stories, and just diving into a character like Bronze Tiger where you're like, he's not going to get featured on anything, but if you put him in Suicide Squad, he's suddenly a big character. And Deadshot is infinitely better with Suicide Squad than he is just being a mercenary that fights Batman every once in a while. Harley Quinn, I don't think she really works as a member of the Suicide Squad, and that kind of gets things a little bit confusing. And now that she takes more prominence, it kind of muddles everything a little bit. But the same thing applies to the X-Men. There's a million X-Men characters, and if you pick the wrong group of people to focus on, boy, is that a fucking pain in the ass. I don't think anybody out there is going, I want my X-Men. I need Marrow, and I need Strongman and whatever. No, you gotta have Cyclops and Wolverine and Jean Grey and Nightcrawler and Beast and Professor X and Magneto, and you gotta have the big guns for something like that to work. And Peter brings out like the Teen Titans. Even the Teen Titans, which Robin do you go for? There's 3-4 different options for Robin. And is Cyborg a part of that? Is Raven? Is Starfire? I'm not as familiar with Big Hero 6. He mentions that. I watched the movie, but I don't remember like any of the characters other than Baymax.
We said it's from the animated series, so I guess they did a spin-off version of that.
Yeah, maybe they have like other superheroes in the. Oh, I mean, they must if it's
It's like every single Disney movie from the like mid-90s to early 2000s always had a Disney spin-off series.
Yeah, Aladdin TV show and the Hercules TV show and all that.
Emperor's New School.
That was the thing.
Yeah, they after the Emperor's New Groove, they did a version where he has to go to college and
God,
he has to learn how to be an emperor.
At least with Disney, you're getting cash grabs on those kind of things. They're going to spin it off in something.
And this was my childhood when I came home from like school. That was like one of the things that came on all the time.
Yeah, Power Rangers counts to me. They started out as just the Japanese show, and then they became the American show that was made for dirt cheap and all that. But it was great. Then now they do comics, now they do video games, they do all that kind of stuff. So they count. I gotta say, like the Avengers from the MCU was amazing, of course, and that's probably would be my pick if I had to pick. But I'm a big fan of Justice League Unlimited, that series where you featured pretty much everybody that you could, and one episode might have like Kyle Rayner from the Green Lantern Corps teaming up with Wally West and Batman and whatever. But the Bat Family is another one. You get Bruce and Dick, preferably as Nightwing, Damian Wayne as Robin, Cassandra Cain maybe as Orphan, if you want to go in that regard. You got Oracle or Batgirl, Alfred, and Jason Todd, the Red Hood, and Commissioner Gordon, and Lucius Fox. And, that team is so expansive now, especially when you add in these characters that I can't even keep track of, like Lark. It's like, who the fuck is Lark? And now you got like a million other Robins that are just like street level people that want to be like inspired by the Robin symbol, and Bluebird and Blue Jay, and there's literally like 1,000 people in the Bat Family, not even counting people like Catwoman, who are technically kind of a part of the group. But the Bat Family's pretty awesome. They might take the cake for me.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Do you like TV show spoilers? You may know where I'm coming from. Watching a show that comes to Japan and airs in America months later, like the Pokemon anime. I stay away from all spoilers.
They don't usually ruin the experience for me if I do see them. I do tend to avoid them if I can, but I haven't. When the NXT stuff used to come out, I know you have to do obviously as part of your line of work, but I would still read the spoilers and I'd still enjoy the episode. It doesn't really bother me too much.
Yeah, NXT's a weird animal like that. That kind of applied to me too.
Which
I would still enjoy that episode, but I can't do the same with NXT UK.
It's a weird thing with these spoilers because people, and I think rightly so, have the assumption that when shows have spoilers coming out before them, there's less inclination to watch them. It's the idea that when SmackDown was taped, it was less urgent or would get less viewers than the live version. When actually, it doesn't really affect things too much because people the difference is between watching spoilers. Spoilers are inherently means you're not going to get as much pleasure out of watching it as you would do, but you're probably still going to watch it anyway because you don't know how it happens. You know what's going to happen, but you don't know how it happens. Unless they're really specific.
With me, when it comes to the wrestling side of things, if I know the spoilers ahead of time, even if I put it on in the background, I might not pay attention to it. Because maybe I just don't care to begin with. But if it's something like, say, a movie that's coming out, if I know the spoiler ahead of time of something that happens in the film or whatever like that, if I want to see the movie, I'm seeing the movie no matter what. It might just take away from the impact for it, like you're saying. And I don't want to know, for instance, like when Endgame was coming out, I was like, I don't want to know what happens. I'm going to stay away from all online articles. I don't want to have anything spoiled. I don't want to know who Catherine Langford is playing, like all the other kind of things like that. But then again, some movies, it doesn't really matter if you know what it is. It kind of depends on the movie, kind of depends on the TV show. Like, I'm not going to, well, I don't really watch them to begin with, but like, if I'm watching like The Price is Right and somebody says, "Oh, that's the one who wins," I'm not gonna be like, I can't watch this episode because it's like it's a stupid game show. I don't care. But maybe I won't watch something like an episode of tonight's Big Brother, and the finale is something that's happening. And Frankie mentioned this in a question, but I haven't been watching Big Brother for the past bunch of weeks. So now if I know who is in the final for it, well, it doesn't really change anything. I haven't been watching it, so it's not really a spoiler for me. And it's kind of like a case by case basis. I don't watch the Pokemon anime, and this kind of ties into his next question here. Do you think Ash is leaving the Pokemon show because apparently he won the league this time? Like I guess over the past bunch of seasons, he's never won the league, and now he's
that's
won.
a shock. Yeah.
So I don't watch that. So to me, that being spoiled, I wasn't gonna watch it anyway. And somebody who would have, and they watched the Japanese version of that does kind of suck because now you're not getting that surprise.
Yeah, especially with a character that's been so like perennial and so constant for that show, to be spoiled and then going away would be pretty devastating, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, if you watch that show for 20 years and it finally happens and you knew it ahead of time and you didn't get that moment, that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether they are doing it or not. I mean, at the end of the day, I assume, obviously there will be some that still, but I imagine there's a lot of people that were watching all the way back when Ash first appeared, probably aren't watching Pokemon, the most recent series. So it's not the worst idea in the world to bring in someone fresh. But at the end of I mean, what's the next series going to be about? Is it going to be based on the Sword and Shield based thing where they're going to be traveling over into Britain? Like all the weird version of Britain that they've got, where Pokemon are like kettles and stuff along those lines.
Well, the downside for introducing a new character is you got to just start all over, and you got to build up that kind of reputation and all that. And if you've got somebody like an Ash who is supposed to be traveling between different regions, he can be that kind of narrative explanation piece for everybody, where he's the audience replacement. If he's an outsider to the area, everything is new to him. And you can have him go, "What is that?" And then they go, "Oh, that's the world famous such and such that's in this area." If you don't know that because you don't live in the Galar region, and everybody here goes to this department store, and like, you know what I mean? Like if it's just some guy from the town, and then they're like, because the games don't make any sense like that. Like you're in Pallet Town, and you just like wake up in your house, and you go downstairs, and it's like you have one other person in the whole town, and it's your best friend, and then there's the Pokemon professor, and you're basically just meeting him. Motherfucker lives right next door to you, and you never met this guy. He's the only other person in town. Like, you know, you're going to different areas, and it's like, this is the SSN. We live at two towns away from you, and we're the only means of transportation. But we'll explain to you as if you didn't know, and you've been cooped up in your bedroom for 20 years, or 10 years, technically.
Yeah. I think probably the bigger question, the idea is, like, where Ash is Ash leaving the Pokemon show? Does that mean Pikachu's leaving the Pokemon show?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they can't really do that. And then if they do that, then why would it bother
Unless
be in a situation where some new character comes in and just happens to have a Pikachu and happens to get fought by Team Rocket and, like, you know.
Yeah, it would be the most amazing, most fitting end to Ash's stint on Pokemon if he gives away his Pikachu, because that is Ash's MO. So
he's just like, well, what I typically do is every time somebody wins me an important battle, or they finally reach that level where they can evolve and be useful, I get rid of them. So see you later, Butterfree. See you later, Charizard. See you later, Primeape, or, you know, whatever different ones that he's gotten rid of over the years. And Pikachu, I finally fucking won. Adios, pal. Just kicks him to the curb. That'd be great. Then it's a whole new world, and like, and I don't have anybody tying me down.
Yeah, just Pikachu walking down with his head down, just doesn't know where to go.
Yeah, he's just like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't know where to go now. Where's Misty? Can she hang out with me anymore? And he's like, fuck you. I got a Square Bunny now, or something. Be interesting. I'm assuming that he just goes to Galar, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then again, I won't be watching anyway, so we'll
No,
see.
yeah, who cares?
Uh, let's get another Peter question here. How do you think the Big E and Xavier Woods' WWE title run is going? Remember, if one member of the New Day wins the title, they all win a title. That is right. I totally forgot about that. And for that matter, are they classifying Kofi Kingston as a dual champion right now? Because or not right now, but when they were the tag team champions.
He classed himself as a dual champion.
Yeah, so I guess technically speaking, they were saying that Big E and Xavier Woods should be like, we share this WWE championship.
So that meant at one point, both the Raw and SmackDown champions were also the Raw and SmackDown tag team champions. Because when Seth Rollins was holding it as well. So yeah, at one instant, well, for a couple of weeks at the very least, they were both like champions of pretty much everything on their roster. Only the mid-card titles were eluding them.
WWE missed an opportunity to be like, for the first time ever.
Yeah, but in terms of their title run, I mean, they've been injured for quite a lot of it. Big E has been injured for quite a lot of it. So would that count then with the 30-day no-compete clause if Big E's been injured for 2 months?
And he hasn't technically defended the WWE championship?
Yeah, does that mean you lose 1/3 of the title? So Kofi Kingston's walking around with the center plate and one strap, and the other strap's just somewhere else.
That'd be great. It's like the top part of the W is there, but the bottom part and the swoosh is gone.
They also have their like signs on the side of it, shouldn't they? I imagine it's only Kingston's got the little emblems at the side of it, like the side plates. Surely they should all have their own one.
Does he have his own, or does it just have the New Day logo? I actually don't know.
I guess if it is all for one for all, then it would just have the New Day one. But I imagine there'd be one with him, like a silhouette of his face with the dreadlocks or something like that.
Let's see here. Kofi Kingston, WWE Championship side plates. Because they might have that old logo with like the dreadlock thing or something. Oh, yeah. It's looking like it just says Kofi Kingston.
Well, that's dull.
Yeah,
it's been like that the whole time. It's been champion for like 6-7 months at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. It's just really big Kofi, and then underneath it, Kingston. That is so bland.
Mm.
Wow. They couldn't even use the little Dreadlock Dynamo logo? Like, that's shitty. Boo. Now Brock Lesnar's going to come in and ruin it all anyway, so... let's see here. Do you like Fire and Desire's tag team finisher? I like Mandy's Kiss the Rose, but Sonya's Chop reminds me of the Ascension finisher, Fall of Man. Yeah, I pretty much agree. It's just the same. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, it's just, was it a running knee to the face and a chop block from behind?
I mean, so.
It's just a move. I think as far as tag team finishers go, there are worse ones. And if the Ascension's not going to be doing it, and they're definitely not going to be hitting their finisher anytime soon, then yeah, I don't see any problem with them using it. It's nothing super special, but I don't know what they could do that would be super special at this point.
Oh, I just got tagged by Frankie. Apparently, the NXT Twitter page just tweeted out my NXT article.
Well, that's good. You're covering all bases.
Yeah. All right, so check me out on 205 Live.
It'd be funny if AEW did it. That'd be weird.
That would be pretty great.
Hey, we shouldn't be advertising the shows on our competition, but this article was so great, we kind of feel like we had to give it a little shout out.
I am so retweeting and loving this.
Should say you're welcome in a really boastful way. So, you're welcome for all this praise, NXT. If it wasn't for me, your show would be getting no view. No, I told you all the winners and losers from NXT. Focus on the losers, you know.
The next NXT post that I am putting up is highlights and low points. The low points pops up, and it's going to be nice.
Low points. No mention of my article. That was terrible. That'll be one eventually. You got to do that for the one next week or something. None of my articles are appearing on this.
Yeah. Oh, what is this cease and desist letter? Let's see here. What else we got going on? Do you think Cody should be removed from Power at AEW? I feel every time he I hear at Cody's story he's acting like a 2-year-old by making fun of WWE in an immature way, or he said something offensive. No, I don't think so. I think that everybody's trying to play this whole like pot shot kind of game and all that, and it's just kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. Like, my impression of this is they're trying to ride their coattails of that as long as they can, and it's dying out, and it's going to get a boost next week and for the next couple of weeks when people are like, that whole like I stand with AEW type thing. But eventually it's going to come off as being like, all right, if you can't do anything without taking a shot at WWE, what are you doing? You know? But I don't think he's really doing anything. I mean, the thing with AAA, I think is what it was, right?
Mm.
That whole thing is like, that was a miscommunication. That wasn't him trying to be offensive, and
No, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with what he's doing right now. I understand the pot shots of WWE, and they should die down eventually, but there's always that big saying of when you're number 2, you take every shot you possibly can at number 1, and if you're number 1, you don't acknowledge number 2. That's kind of the attitude I take towards this stuff, because it's just how it should be done. Number 1 should know they're number 1, and they don't need to acknowledge anyone else besides themselves. And also, if somebody should be taken out of power by acting like a 2-year-old, then Vince has been in the position for way too long at that point. He gets out of the wrong side of the bed and whatever, and he's cranky and he just wants to bury Cedric Alexander or something.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So.
Yes. But yeah, I think Cody's fine in the position it is. If things start going off the rails, then maybe they need to get a more experienced head. But they just signed Kevin Sullivan as a member of their production team, so they're bringing experienced heads to go alongside the people who are at the helm. I think they'll be fine for the time being.
Yeah, and it's a trial and error process, and they're learning.
Yeah,
so
they'll make mistakes.
They'll learn a little bit more. They'll make mistakes. They'll learn from those. They'll make some big mistakes, and then they'll have to backtrack, and they'll figure it out. I don't think it's anything that they need to address right now. It's not like he did or said anything that I think is like bad enough that they would have to really address it. He's not, discriminating towards anybody, saying that he endorses like some horrible people or.
I think he's a very good public speaker. I think he's a very good spokesperson. He's got that naturally in him.
Yeah, it's just a matter of tweaking some things.
Yeah.
Last one from Peter. Do you think that The Rock will face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania or be inducted into the Hall of Fame? I think he's more likely to be inducted than to wrestle him. If he wrestles, which I don't think is going to happen, he might tag with Roman.
It's such an interesting situation with The Rock because of how valuable a movie star he is. I mean, there was the issue with him wrestling at WrestleMania 29 and tearing his the thigh muscle, and then that delayed shooting on the Hercules movie, I think was the one he was doing at that time. And that delayed production for a couple of months, and so that cost the studio millions of dollars. They can't afford to do that again. So I don't know what he is shooting right now, and if it's anything major or more appropriately when the time WrestleMania comes along. I think I agree with you in the sense that if he is to wrestle, then it would be in a tag team or in some sort of squash match. Or I could see him wrestling Triple H because it's a safer style, which wouldn't be less demanding because it's just those two in a match, or some other legendary figure because there'd be less demand on them to put in a really good work rate and just be there and do their stuff.
I do think he's going to show up at some point, though.
Oh, yeah. I'd say the likelihood is that if he is being there, then it would be to be inducted, because we haven't really seen The Rock for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's in Florida, so he's going to have, like, that connection that they're going to want to tap into, and that might not be a big thing. It might be the type of thing that, like, they really just have him come out and do that kind of weird, he had the God, I'm blanking on the name of it, the flamethrower kind of thing before, and, like, they might do something like that, but we might even get kind of a little bit of an answer to this next week. He might show up on SmackDown, and if you remember, obviously you remember, I'm just putting it out there for the audience, SmackDown 1000, Batista came out, and he did the whole thing that set up the Triple H angle. We might get some kind of surprise with The Rock next week, and he might show up on the SmackDown debut on Fox, and it might be like he bumps into, who would he bump into that would cause an issue?
Carmella, and he goes after the 24/7 title.
That'd be kind of crazy if they did that. Imagine that, like, going through Hollywood and like people start pinning him on different movie sets and stuff like that. WWE would probably fucking love it.
I
But,
imagine
like,
the one person that he could cause an issue with is Brock.
yeah, Brock is like the go-to. That's obviously, I don't want to say it. I've said that a million times, but like, maybe there's something to even like this. This is not going to happen, but like Kevin Owens or Shane McMahon or Drew McIntyre or somebody, like, you know, whoever it is, doesn't really matter. They would have the game plan well in advance and they would know what it was doing, but they could have him do some kind of a segment and it could just be just enough to tease something. And then The Rock ends up fighting somebody at WrestleMania, and maybe it's a special attraction match and it's not like a title on the line, or it's not something to really like totally depend on. But I can't imagine, for instance, The Rock suddenly saving Roman Reigns on SmackDown next week, and it's going to be like, well, The Rock and Roman Reigns are going to team up to fight the Bludgeon Brothers at WrestleMania, and that feud's going to continue. Like, that's not going to happen. But
No.
yeah, he might do something to Mania, and if he does, I'd lean much more heavily towards just a promo before anything, and then the Hall of Fame before wrestling, and then wrestling in a tag team match before actually, like, let's book 100% The Rock versus Roman Reigns. That's really tough.
Yeah, that seems like the most logical tier list for his potential work at WrestleMania.
Especially because it's like, if it's The Rock versus Roman, The Rock is the babyface, and do they really want Roman to be booed?
No, well, they'll just say it's once in a lifetime, and then they'll do the rematch the year after.
That's true. There hasn't been any indication of where Mania is going to be next year, is it?
No. There's I mean, if tradition is any indicator, it's either going to be. I mean, the New York, New Jersey area was last year's one, so they probably won't do that one again. But I'd imagine they might go back to New Orleans because they seem to like that place quite a lot. There's California, but the issue with California is that there's those regulations that come in that prevented people working in California.
There's Texas.
Yeah, Texas is a big area. They could go back to Toronto if they wanted to, like go into Canada again. There's plenty of places they could work. I'd be interested to see if they did one in Las Vegas again. But I don't know if Las Vegas has any big enough stadiums for it.
I would assume if there's anything that's been recently built, even if it's like Minneapolis or Cincinnati or Detroit or like just like any other ones that they don't necessarily go to all that often, if there's any kind of big stadium, they might try to go there. Who knows? It'd be awesome if they did like Philly, but I don't think that's going to happen. Let's see. Let's move on to Frankie's questions. Actually, real quick before we move on to Frankie's questions, let me just toss out a little plug there for anybody that's interested. FanboysAnonymous.com is my stuff where we talk about TVs and not TVs. We're just talking TVs. Oh, so I got this Samsung, Toshiba, whatever. Talk about TV stuff, geek culture topics like films and comic books and movie reviews and all that other kind of stuff like that. So go to Fanboys Anonymous. And also, if you are interested in the merchandise shops, I didn't mention anything about that before when I should have mentioned it. But there are TeePublic and Redbubble shops for Smark Out Moment, for Fanboys Anonymous, and for a Mango Tees. So if you want to pick up a t-shirt or some stickers or anything else like that, head on over there, see what you're interested in, maybe pick something up. So let's talk about some more wrestling stuff, some wrestling, and some food and some other things, because Frank usually gives us a wide variety of questions. This one's a wrestling one. Do you see Bianca Belair ever winning the NXT Women's title? She definitely has to, unless she just moves up to the main roster in the meantime. But I'm thinking Candice LeRae beats Shayna Baszler for the title soon, and then I think Belair is going to win the title from Candice LeRae after that. Not necessarily like super quick, but down the line.
I think the move from NXT onto the USA Network makes it more likely that Bianca Belair will win, because Bianca has real star potential about her and could be one of the big star focal points of a TV show that's meant to be drawing ratings. Again, it all depends on whether she is moved up to the main roster. I don't know if you can call it the main roster anymore because of the fact they're all on TV now, but the up into either Raw or SmackDown, that'll be anything that prevents her from winning the NXT Women's title, because she should be the next champion after Candice, if Candice is the one to win it, or whichever babyface takes it from Shayna in the first place.
When do you think NXT is going to start using Austin Theory for TV? Not for a couple months.
Not too sure. It depends on how much they see of him and how much they think he's going to work out. I mean, they have 2 hours now to fill each week, so they might just bring him in as a developmental guy to do a bit of enhancement work for someone like a Damian Priest for a couple of times. But I don't think we'll see him debut as Austin Theory or whatever name they decide to give him until I'd probably say the new year at the very earliest.
I think that the fact that they gave him that little spot at the last takeover means that they are valuing him as more than somebody who's going to come in and do what a lot of people do. Like last week we saw Denzel Desjardins, or Desjardins. Which one actually is it? I'm not too sure. Desjardins?
I think it's Stationette.
Yeah, I think so. So he popped up and he just, gets his ass kicked by Imperium and whatever. But that's because he can be repackaged at any time and he can be brought in as an enhancement talent person and then get renamed and do the kind of thing that plenty of other people have done in the past. I mean, Elias used to be the type of guy who would lose in 10 seconds to Baron Corbin. And then they bring him in as the Drifter and they switch things up. And Damian Priest was there as Punishment Martinez. And they do that for a lot of different people. And Austin Theory, I guess he's got a name that's built enough throughout that system that when they advertised him as Austin Theory. They made him be like the standout person in the crowd. I think that he'll come in and he'll just be a guy already. And right now they got plenty of people to focus on. They've got obviously the 3 horsewomen and Candice LeRae and Mia Yim and Io Shirai and Bianca Belair and all the people in the women's division that don't even include somebody like the Chelsea Greens and the Lacey Lanes, who's now Kaden Carter. And the women's side alone, I don't think that they're going to be bringing in any names like that they're going to be doing all that crazy with. But with the men's side, they've got even more people. And there's plenty of people to hold them off, I think, for the next bunch of weeks. Because really, if you think about it, 2 hours a week for the next bunch of times for the rest of the year, it's towards the end of the year. I got a couple more months leading up to WrestleMania. I'm thinking Austin Theory is one of those people that comes around after WrestleMania. Maybe he starts working a little bit more in like the Access and Worlds Collide type material just to kind of get his feet wet a little bit. And he comes in as like a big deal, whether they do like a Superstar Shakeup or something like that. I think that he comes in around that time. And I could be totally wrong. They could show him up tonight. Because it's 4:41 right now that we're recording, so we have no idea what's happening tonight other than those couple of things that have been advertised. But for all I know, he fucking fights Dakota Kai. So, Dakota Kai, not Dakota Kai.
Maybe Dakota Kai. Maybe that's his new name.
Dakota Kai? Dakota? Depends.
Dakota meh.
Yeah. Another question here from Frankie. Do you like Olive Garden? Do you have an Olive Garden in your area?
There is not. The Olive Garden chain restaurant is not a restaurant based in the UK. I checked their international page just to verify that. And obviously I've never been to it, but there is not one in the UK anyway. So even if I wanted to, I think the one that's closest is probably in either Brazil or the United Arab Emirates. So
yeah, and I got to tell you, it is not worth you going on a whole vacation. Olive Garden's one of those things that's like, it's not bad, but man, is it not good. It's like, you can get, and this applies to like so many different things. If you have like a local place that really knows what they're doing, it's probably going to be better than any kind of chain. You're going to want to eat certain things. And like, if I'm in the mood for Pizza Hut style pizza, Pizza Hut's the only one that's really going to do it for me. But if I'm going to get pizza, I'm probably going to go for a local place more than a chain. And the same thing when it comes to Italian food. It's like, I like their chicken gnocchi soup. A lot of people go crazy over the breadsticks. I think that they're okay, but I'm very rarely in the mood for that type of a breadstick. I want something a little different. And yeah, if I'm there, like I'm eating the breadsticks and they're good and everything, but very rarely am I like, man, I want some Italian food and I want some bread with it and I want something like their fettuccine Alfredo is not good. It's so bland. So when people eat there and they act like that's like the one only Italian place, maybe in your area it might be like the best, but I'm in New Jersey. So, yeah, we got plenty of people from Philly and from New York and from New Jersey that are like, fuck you, I'm Italian, I know what I'm doing. And I've got a better Italian place that's like a 2-minute walk from my house, essentially. So, fuck that, I'm getting tortellini from that place instead or something, you know?
I love the fact that it's a traditional Italian restaurant. They don't even have a location in Italy. So,
Oh,
just
they couldn't possibly.
no, they
Yeah.
wouldn't get away with it, I imagine.
Do you have any like particularly like, man, this is like in this area we can find some really good this and that, but we don't have any of this. Like the guy have like no, this is a weird thing to pick, but like if I wanted like Hungarian food, I'm like, well, I'm screwed because I got nothing around here. You go up to New York and you can find everything.
I wouldn't say. I mean, London is probably the most eclectic place for different tastes. If you wanted to, like, you could basically find a restaurant for pretty much anything. It's such a diverse cultural like hub of 10 million or so people that you could pretty much find any sort of cuisine there. I'm not the most, as you're well aware, I'm not the most diverse eater or like foodie in the world. So I don't really go in search of too many things that are too diverse. I try bits and pieces every now and again, but I wouldn't say there was anywhere in particular, especially not in my area where there's most stuff. You're more likely to find just the traditional, like, oh, I can find Chinese food, or I can find like an Indian takeaway or something along those lines, but nothing really too much more diverse than that.
It's not the type of thing where you're like, man, I got these great pizza places, this great Italian place, this great
Uh,
chicken place. Like,
I've always just been a case of the most proximate is the best. That is, at that point in time, that is the best option because it's right next door.
it all depends on how hungry you are as
Yeah.
well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And usually, if I'm not going to actually either cook or do something myself, I have to be pretty damn hungry or pretty damn lazy to not want to do that stuff. So at that point, just anything will do, really.
This is a random aside, but it just made me think about it. I'm not the type of person who tends to eat out at a lot of different places where it's not necessarily like the go-to thing. Like if I'm going to like a diner, I'm going to eat because I'm at a diner. Why am I there if I'm not? But for something like if I were to go to like a stadium for some kind of a sporting event or something like that, I might get like a hot dog. I might get like uh some fries or something like that. But I'm probably not going to eat like a full-on meal. And the same thing applies to the movies. And when I went recently, I saw Ad Astra, and uh, I had tried their mozzarella sticks at AMC theaters, and they were pretty friggin' good. So when Caroline and I went, we were like, you know what? Let's just eat there the next time we go. And we went to movies the other day. We saw that movie filming, like I just said, and we were like, you know what? Let's just eat at the movies. So I got their cheeseburger sliders. We got a thing of their mozzarella sticks. We got their mac and cheese bites, and we were like, this is a weird, like, why are we doing this kind of thing? I gotta tell you, those cheeseburger sliders were like pretty damn good too. I'm like, out of nowhere, I'm sitting there thinking, I wonder if one random day I should just go to AMC and be like, yeah, I'm not seeing a movie, but can I get food? Like next time I'm in the mood for cheeseburger sliders, just be like, yeah, I don't have a ticket, but I want to just pick up some stuff for your concession stand.
I've felt similar ways about because I've been to there's a stadium, the Wembley Arena Stadium, where you usually would see like the WWE shows because it's just like a massive surrounding area. Or the O2 Stadium, it's the actual stadium's inside, but then it's surrounded. It's like a giant oval surrounded by tons and tons of different restaurant chains and corner shops and like memorabilia stores and things along those lines. It's like a little like high street in the middle in just surrounding the actual stadium where you're actually going. So it's so easy to get lost in those things. I imagine there's plenty of people that just go there to eat and they say, "Oh, what show are you seeing?" "Oh, I'm just here having a meal." It's like
Yeah.
just it's just amazing how like expansive these areas are now. Like they're there for every purpose beyond just actually what they're there for.
No, he also asks if we've tried the Popeyes chicken sandwich that people are going nuts about, and I'm kind of assuming that Popeyes isn't around your area either as well, right?
Not that I'm familiar with, no.
So I actually don't have a Popeyes that's real close enough to me. We used to, but it went down. For some reason, I had like 3 KFCs and a Popeyes around me, and then over the past decade, all of them went away. I was just like, shit, like now wasn't the biggest fan of either of their chicken, but now if I wanted some kind of fried chicken place, I gotta go like 15, 20 minutes away. I ain't getting that, you know? So in particular, people are going so nuts about these Popeyes chicken sandwiches that they're waiting in line for a long ass time and they're getting sold out. They can't possibly be that good. And there's no way I'm going 15 minutes into an opposite direction where I'm going just to stand in line for half an hour just to be told that this chicken sandwich isn't there. Screw that. No chicken sandwich is worth that. I'm just going to Chick-fil-A or something. And pickles are gross.
Yeah, just did another Google search, and there are no Popeyes franchises in the UK either. So we're really like running thin on mediocre chain American restaurants. So
You'll have to plan a trip one time to like a hub city like a New York and spend like a week and just eat like 5 meals a day from these different types of places that you'll have around the area.
yeah, yeah, I might have to shop around a little bit, try and convince them. But this is my plea to the people of Olive Garden and Popeyes: just have one location that I'll never go to in the UK. So that's like,
Well, if it's close enough, then it suddenly becomes the best meal.
oh yeah, obviously, if it's right, if they put it in my house, then I'm gonna probably use it pretty often. But
Imagine the awkwardness if you didn't. It's like right next door to your house.
yeah, no,
And
and
they're
just
like,
like always just walking past and going, like, oh, you're just going out. It's like, yeah, I'm just getting that something to eat. Well, we're right here. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, I know.
Oh, you must be getting something that we don't sell, like Indian food. No, I'm getting chicken.
Just come back with a KFC bucket.
Yeah. I always thought like if you work for one of those companies and you're not just like, I mean, if you're like a pizza delivery guy for Papa John's and you get Domino's one day, it's not like the craziest thing in the world. But like if you are Papa John and you go to like a Pizza Hut one day, they must be like, what the hell? You know, take a picture and be like, put this on social media because Bill Arby's or whoever the hell runs that thing is eating at Wendy's or something, you know, like that must be kind of strange.
Yeah, I just find it amazing if like somebody just clocked off from Domino's and then just walks over to the street and gets something out of Pizza Hut, and that's
Yeah.
just be like,
Especially because so many of them are like right in that area. Like I've got like a McDonald's is right next to a Taco Bell, and then they're right across the street from a Wendy's, and right down the road is an Arby's. So it's like you could literally work at McDonald's and say, I'm gonna walk across the street to Wendy's or to Taco Bell or to Boston Market or whatever, and be like, yeah, I want your burger, not my burger. Like that would be so strange.
you could do like trades. Like if one guy from like there might be a system where one guy takes his McDonald's and meets the guy who's brought his Wendy's like halfway, and they just swap bags, and then they just go.
Yeah.
That'd be a good
Yeah, I'll
system.
trade you some nuggets for some of your fries, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, a good barring system.
Drop a comment below if you've done that. I want to know if like somebody has switched the curly fries from Arby's for a milkshake over at Burger King or whatever it is. It'd be kind of interesting. What's your favorite animal from the sea? I honestly don't know. There's a lot of fuck that. I ain't going near that when it comes to the sea.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't imagine that most of these ones would be ones that I'd like to touch in particular, but I mean, I think the pufferfish is cool.
It's a cute little
Just
thing.
because of its defense mechanism, I just think it's interesting. Well, I think I got used to was it Crash Bandicoot was a game where, well, obviously it's a game, but where you had to it would appear as a pufferfish, and it would just appear as like this small little thing, and then as soon as you got near to it, it would just expand outwards, and so I probably like hated them at that point in time, but now I just think they're cool.
A lot of them are like they've got potential to be really cool, even if they're the type that you would never want as like a pet.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
you know, a shark in theory is pretty cool, but that is just like a killing machine, like a torpedo of teeth. Fuck that. And certain things are like, I mean, turtles can be kind of cute, and a seahorse looks interesting, and otters are funny to look at. And if you're talking taste, I mean, crab is amazing. The lobster is great and stuff like that. And salmon is awesome on a plate, but I'm not going to ever be interested in like the actual fish.
See, that's where we would obviously differ, because moving back to my fussy eater side of things, I would only appreciate animals from the sea by looking at them, because I don't eat fish. So
Have you
zero.
tried a lot of those different types?
I've tried enough to
Yeah.
to put me off that side of things. If I was to eat any sort of fish, it would probably be more along the lines of like oysters and stuff along those lines, like stuff that isn't really fish but is from that general area.
Yeah, clams are good. But when you're looking at like how interesting is the clam, it's a rock with something slimy on the inside. It's nothing special.
Nah.
But man, I'll tell you, one of the animals that freaks me the fuck out are jellyfish. Those are some alien motherfuckers. That should not be a thing.
I
Th-
like those like photos and artist renderings they take of all of them just lit up in an area. They're just
It's creepy.
which is just like a organic lava lamp.
Yeah.
But I think they are very alien looking. But I think that's just because we've associated aliens with that sort of thing. I'm still waiting for the day that aliens land, unless they just look like us but shorter.
They even have like the same type of like aesthetic. Like one of them's got a nose ring and all
Yeah,
that kind of shit. They're just like all of them are about like 2.5 foot tall.
yeah. We've just experienced what you call the 80s.
Radical. That is what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
Like they're all slowly behind from getting our TV signals and stuff.
Yeah, they're culturally in the 80s, but they're technologically like millions of light years ahead of us.
Right, yeah. They're sitting there on spaceships watching Doogie Howser. That'd be great. What do you think about the Emmys? Speaking of the TV side of things, didn't watch it, never really watch it. I typically don't watch any of the shows that are nominated, so I don't really care all that much.
No, I didn't watch it either, so I can't really comment too much of it. I know that a British TV show called Fleabag pretty much swept up. I think the person who created it, who's also the lead actress in it, won 3 of the awards.
Hmm.
And I've seen that show, and I think it's not really my taste, but it does have its like funny moments, and it's really seemed to have connected with both British and American audiences. So good on her for putting that thing together and for winning that many awards. It's always nice
Yeah,
to see British people win stuff.
never really heard of the show beforehand, and I don't even know what it's about, so I might end up checking it out if it's something that's interesting. But typically speaking, a lot of those different types of the Emmy awards go to shows that I'm like, I would never watch that.
Nah.
It's a prestige show that means this and whatever. It's all awards are all just so stupid in so many different ways. What else we on here? How do you see Elias doing after the Fox move? This is one of the only ones that is from the whole draft kind of prediction side of questions that I decided to keep in here because I thought that this would be something that's worth talking about before they switch things over. I think he should go to Raw.
Yeah, Raw probably does suit him better. He had more success on Raw than he's had in any of the time on SmackDown.
Yeah, I don't think that SmackDown's a good spot for him. If they want to do something more sports oriented, are they really going to want to spend 10 minutes in an angle of him just singing? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think he needs to be on a place where he's got a bit more time to build up there, a bit more character driven on that side of things. I think he just needs a fresh start more than anything else, really, because he's just been buried 6 feet under. And at the end of the day, he's injured right now, and he's going to be for a little while. So, is it broken ankle? I think he has.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so he probably won't be back for a couple of months anyways. So in that time, just moving to Raw in the draft, have him as someone who goes unmentioned, really. Or just don't draft him at all, and then he can come back on whatever show you think's best suited for him.
Yeah, they could always just do that. And it's not like WWE is beholden to this idea that the brand split thing cannot be changed at any point, or they can't just move somebody and say, well, we've done a trade in the middle of nowhere. Like, that happens.
It would be funny if he was drafted back to NXT, like the one place he couldn't get over.
Right, yeah. And he's El Vagabundo again.
That was good.
I like that a lot. That was great. There was a report that Vince McMahon wanted to make it a point on Raw to bury Cedric Alexander. Do you believe in the rumor report or no? I don't.
I don't believe the rumor that he specifically said, I want to bury this guy 6 feet under. I just think it falls under the general categories that WWE doesn't know how to book babyfaces properly.
I think that that's the case. I think that maybe Cedric is not one of Vince's go-to people that he wants to push. So he's maybe falling by the wayside a little bit. Maybe it's this type of thing where it's like, well, fuck it. He can lose. He's not anything that we're really focused on right now. But I don't think that there's some kind of edict that came out where it was like, God damn it, I want Cedric Alexander buried. I think if that's the case, they would have done a lot more. They would have had him lose in 10 seconds to, I don't know, Renee Young, and then have shit dumped all over him. And,
Yeah,
it doesn't strike me as that kind of case.
The term buried is thrown around quite a lot for things that don't really class and that side of things. I think he just, don't get me wrong, I think the segment was completely moronic and it made no sense to have him both lose the match and then get beaten up after the match. It's stupid. But the very next week he's beating up AJ Styles and sending him to the back, was it during the match with the Viking Raiders, yeah. So they still seem to be continuing the feud at the very least. I don't know why at this point. But yeah, I wouldn't say he was buried. I just think that they didn't know what to do properly on that occasion. Maybe they're concentrating more on building up the OC more than they're building up here.
Yeah, I think that's what the circumstances are. What do you think about Area 51? This is an interesting one.
It's just stupid. I mean, that's just the phrase that I can only think about. It's. I understand the appeal and the conspiracy and everything that surrounded Area 51 in the past, but seriously, I mean, it's just the state of some people nowadays that they think that they should use the power of social media or any other sources like that to, I don't know, instead of make a difference in the world, try and cure diseases or hunger or end homelessness or something like that. No, let's just all get together and storm a place where aliens are supposedly.
Did you check any of the footage that had been going on during that day?
I wanted to zone it out. I wanted to pretend that it wasn't happening, if I'm honest.
I clicked on a couple of things. One thing that I laughed hysterically at was there's literally a group of a bunch of people standing outside this gate with signs chanting, "Clap them cheeks." And it's just because somebody's got a sign there that says like, "Let's see them alien cheeks" or something like that. And like, it's the stupidest fucking proof that like we're in a time frame where we've got like our president is the most controversial president I can imagine after a long, long time, even including George Bush, which that's a whole nother discussion. And there's possible impeachment happening. And there's all these like conflicts and all these horrible things happening. And we're in the PC culture era where you can look at somebody and say, wow, it's a really nice day out today. And they'll be like, I'm so offended. Fuck you. And like, then there's school shootings and there's like all this other kind of insanity. And it's like, so what's on the news today? Bunch of people decided to do a Naruto run at fucking Area 51. Like, if this is not one of the best signs that the world is just spiraling down into this abyss of, maybe we did fall into a black hole in 2012 and we're descending into madness or whatever, but it's also hilariously perfect.
Oh yeah.
It wouldn't have happened before this. Like, nobody would have gotten in the 80s or the 90s or the early 2000s or something. It wouldn't have happened. He would have had one loon that's just on his own running towards there and he just gets arrested and whatever. It wouldn't have been all these people dressed up as fucking aliens doing this stupid shit.
Yeah, it's like the power of social media, the mass organization of the stupid is kind of the biggest thing that it's delivered. I just think that, I imagine if aliens do exist and they're out there, they just like were maybe just scouting around the area and they just look and see what's happening in this particular zone and say, yeah, let's go somewhere else. I think Venus looks nice this time of year. Like, they're not going to vacation with these morons playing around.
Some aliens in the base, and he turns around to his like human handler, and he's like, "You guys got Area 52 set up yet? Can we just go? We can use our teleportation thing and kind of sort that all out a little bit later." By the way, did you see Alf? I hear that that's real big right now. I'm stuck in the A's. Area 51 itself, though, here's my philosophy.
They're getting conspiracies now.
There is something. I mean, Area 51 is not there for no reason.
No,
It's clearly something.
I think that might be just a giant rib, in the idea that the fact that everyone believes something's in Area 51, there might have been something in the past that was in Area 51. I don't think it's there anymore. I think that's the whole rib about the whole thing. Is like everyone still assumes that it's in Area 51, whatever it was, but now it's not. I don't think it's aliens.
It's really weird because Area 51 was created before we had like Google Maps. And for that matter, I mean, it's the fucking government. If they want to block out Area 51 on Google Maps, they have the control to be able to do it. For that matter, too, Google is totally involved in the government, but that's a whole other thing. And the base itself looks like, why wouldn't you try to do stuff there? Like, if you've got underground bunkers and you got around Groom Lake and you've got all this mountain range stuff and all that, that's a pretty damn secure area to be able to store some high-tech equipment or do some experimental aircraft kind of work, or if there were any kind of alien type things, then maybe you do that, because there's also like different protocol. And if you're a military base in the middle of Wyoming and some weird thing happens and the government needs to step in, suddenly that base goes from a bunch of people standing around doing nothing all day to being like a fortified structure. And maybe if something were to happen in that area with something alien related, then Area 51 would definitely be an area that they would do that. But it's been decades, and Area 51 has been this go-to place for all this alien talk. If there are aliens that have appeared on Earth and there is some kind of contact, and whatever the case may be with that, they are not hanging out in the same exact spot where everybody sees it. It's not like we'll hang out in plain sight and that's the best way to do that. No, they're going to Dugway Proving Grounds, or which that one, if the fact that I know that Dugway Proving Grounds is a thing means that nothing's probably there anymore either, but it seems a little bit more secure than Area 51. And I heard this thing, I forget even what it was, but it was like this underground bunker thing that they showed off that was a part of like the White House. And it was like this tunnel that went to this random hotel outside of DC, and it was like this huge long tunnel that like nobody knew anything about, and it's just this room in this hotel or whatever. If they can do that crap and they feel like they have had enough decades to go by and to be like, well, we're not going to use this anymore, let's just show people the thing that we had since like Eisenhower was in office or whatever it was. Imagine the other shit that they've got. Yeah. You're not going to go to Area 51 and have binoculars and start looking towards their building and be like, oh, look at that, there's ET.
Yeah, it would be a little weird.
It'd be hilarious if that's how things get out, though. Like, all of this speculation and all this hearsay and all this cover-up stuff and the Men in Black and this UFO and this USO and all this secrecy, and then somebody's just kind of like, yo, check what Dave's got on his cell phone.
It would be the very 2019 way of it coming out.
Yeah, that's true.
So somebody
would be offended by it.
Yeah, it would be. I don't want to call them aliens. I want to call them like other. That's a derogatory term of people.
Why do they have to be extraterrestrials? What's extra about them? Can't we all just get along? They're living on Earth now. They're just terrestrials. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm sure the government people that are listening to this podcast,
if you haven't shut us down by this point, I guess we're fine to continue.
Yeah, if you have any thoughts on your Area 51 base, drop a comment below and tell us what's in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you rather have all traffic lights that you get be green, or would you rather never have to wait in line again? This is easy. I'm not waiting in lines.
Yeah, absolutely. It's waiting in lines is the right answer. And to be fair, I come from a position where I don't drive, so it doesn't really bother me too much. The traffic lights would be green or red at any particular time, but the traffic light thing, you're like at the very least you're probably sitting there for 3 or 4 minutes, and then you can get moving again. In line, you could be there for 20, 30 minutes.
You could be there for an entire day.
Yeah,
with certain things.
Yeah, I imagine all those people that went to see the Star Wars movies, like all the way back in the 70s, whatever, would probably have wished that they didn't have to sit in line, so they didn't have to like camp out for like weeks in advance.
People camping out in lines for like Black Friday deals and stuff, where it's like a Best Buy or whatever, and it's like 2 days ahead of time, and they're gonna sit out there in line. Absolutely ridiculous. And if you could not have to wait in line ever again, and you just imagine the deals you would get with that, even just be like, all right, I'm gonna go there 2 minutes before they show up with like the doors opening and just cut the line. It'd be great. WrestleMania tickets, first come, first serve.
Yeah, I imagine I'm trying to think how it would work in practice. Does everyone else line up and you just walk through and they don't like bat an eyelid, or does something happen where you arrive and everyone else disappears and you just walk up to the other side and then have to? I would love the most trolly way of doing it was you arrive and everyone like disappears, and then it's like a situation where you were the first person in line, so they just go back home and they have to go back out to line up again.
That, or it's like if you're at like a store, you go for like the Black Friday kind of deal, and you decide that you want to show up, and they go, all right, well, he's the first person in line, so everybody else has to wait outside the store until he's done shopping.
Oh yeah,
you just do that for like 2 hours, and you're like, I'm kind of thinking about getting this one. I don't really know. People are like, please let me in. I need to buy that stupid TV.
Or you turn up midway through someone getting the checkout, like at the grocery store or whatever. So someone's like halfway, like he's got one more thing to put in the grocery bag, and you turn up and say, "Oh, we've got to take everything out. You got to go back and back a step. This guy's coming first."
You just start picking from other people's stuff that they've been at line with. So they're like getting checked in, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I needed a bag of chips. I like Doritos, so I'm gonna take it from this one." And I needed this from that person.
See, now we've created a scenario where you don't just have to not wait in line; you can also be an asshole as well. So that's double win.
Yeah. See, now that's how you get around in life. That's efficiency, where you take a thing where you don't have to wait in line, and you apply it to, well, how do I also have to not shop? And then somebody else is doing the work for you and all that. That'd be amazing. You'd totally get shot at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine the riots from like a Black Friday thing. You go in there and everybody's like, well, we're handing out tickets for these things, because they do that, which I've never done Black Friday shopping other than one time, and I only went to one store, and it was only to like for something to do. But like for hot ticket items, they actually hand out vouchers in line. And imagine being the type of person where it's like, we're gonna give you like, there's 100 iPhones to get out, and you've got to have this ticket. And then some asshole comes up a minute before the doors open, and he's like, yeah, I've got my get out of jail free card, essentially, and I don't have to do this. Also, I'm stealing one of these vouchers because I want one of those. God, the riot that would end up happening in that scenario.
That'd be great. Be good to like be the one that caused it until they kill you, obviously.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you just go like, later, nerds, and just like, But you wouldn't have to wait in line to buy movie tickets. You wouldn't have to wait in line at the fast food. Like you'd be in a drive-through, and everybody would just sort of like speed off and have to cycle back through the drive-through again because you'd be the first in line. Like, that'd be amazing if you could do that. I'll take the red light every once in a while for that. What game has been the most addicting for you? GoldenEye for N64 and Tetris. GoldenEye, I played that shit so much. Just walking around on the runway levels, shooting people and running people over in the tank and all that stuff. And Grand Theft Auto is another one, super addicting. You just do that for hours. And Tetris is just like, man, I made it to level 20 something or whatever, and it's super fast. Oh, I'm so pissed I lost. Let me just start all over again.
Pretty much any Pokemon game fits into that side of category. Because I always play with the idea of grinding. I adore grinding in Pokemon. It's such an easy way to just relax yourself because you're just going into the grass, getting finding a wild Pokemon, just being it and leveling up. So I would always spend time leveling up my Pokemon at the same rate, even in the really old ones where you didn't have all of them getting XP shares, so they don't all just like start evolving no matter who you're winning. You'd have to keep trading them in and out. But the grind was fun. The other game that's probably the most addictive to me was Civilization 5. I think on Steam I've clocked over 600 hours in that game. So
never even heard of it.
It's a like one of these real-time strategy games where you just build a civilization that's previously existed through history, and you build world wonders, and you build like the civilization up, you grow the size of it, you build armies, you fight other civilizations, you try and conquer them. I've played it multiple times. I don't exactly complete too many games because I like the early game, and the late game it becomes a grind, especially because my computer sucks, and so it gets really slow and difficult to play towards the very end of it. But the early game is a lot of fun, and I spend a lot of time just playing those games, which I think the reason why I like it so much is because it's one of the few strategy games that I'm good at, or at least I've played enough of to get good at. So that's just the one that I'll always go back to, even though I want to try a few other ones. It's just a nice, comfortable place to go home to.
That's like with video games being addicting, there's two different levels to it. Either it's so much fun that you just can't put it down and you just want to keep playing the same thing over and over again, like the GoldenEye type of thing for me, where it's like I could play multiplayer with a bunch of friends for like 6 hours and probably still have a lot of fun. Just as there's, let's do slappers only, license to kill in this one, and let's do remote mines in the caverns where we don't know the level all that well, and like, you can play around with that kind of thing. Or Grand Theft Auto, where it's like you might just want to steal cars and run people over the whole entire day.
Yeah.
Or it's like a strategy-based thing where you're like kind of like what you were saying with Civilization, where you're like, oh, I actually can progress, and I want to see changes to everything, and even Pokemon to that extent. Like, if you're into the grinding side of things, you want to catch every Pokemon, and you want to level them up to level 100, and you want to evolve them all, and shiny hunt. Do you ever do that?
No, I never got into the shiny. I never saw the. I know it's obviously like there's no point to anything in terms of just playing a video game like Pokemon. It's like there's any sort of grand prize at the end of it beyond just winning the game.
That stupid certificate thing.
Oh yeah. But it's more along the lines of it's the shiny hunting just feels like an added layer of pointlessness because it's not like the Pokemon's any different. It's just a different color.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel special to me.
Credit to those people that do have the patience to do that shit, though, because, man, I could not do that. I don't know which types of shinies that I had caught back in the day with Gold and Silver, because that was the last games that I owned. So, I mean, obviously everybody got the Gyarados, but, like, I probably got, like, a shiny Hoot or something stupid, and that was probably it. Or shiny Ariados, whatever.
It's a lot easier in the new, like, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee ones, because it's depending on like the chain of Pokemon that you get. So if, say for instance, I think you catch like 30 something Psyducks and in an area, and then you're more likely to see a shiny one. It's not obviously all the time won't pop up, but you're more likely to see a shiny one pop up at that point.
Oh, so at that point, if you really, really want a shiny Chansey, you just keep catching Chansey and whatever.
Yeah, you just keep grinding for as long as you need to.
It's the worst backhanded compliment that you've ever received or given. I've probably given a lot that I'm not even fucking aware of. But the first thing that came to my mind on this, and I can't think of any specifics other than this example, but I've gotten plenty of people that have said things similar to the idea or the phrase of, I used to hate you until I got to know you. Where it's kind of like, I'm glad you don't hate me anymore, but what the fuck did you hate about me before?
Yeah, no, that's an odd one.
I've gotten that by at least like 5 people. Just every so often, it's just kind of like, my impression of you was that you're a real fucking jerk and whatever, and you're actually a nice guy. And it's like, yeah, I know I am.
I kind of always felt like when I was being called a nerd, it was kind of a backhanded compliment. Because it was usually from people that I classed as friends. If it was from people that were just dicks, then I wouldn't obviously take it as a compliment. But if it's from my friends, I feel it's a backhanded compliment because they're basically saying that it's partly saying that I'm smart, and so they want me to give the answers to them on tests or anything along those lines. But it's also saying, yeah, but you're smart in that way, which makes you like socially awkward and really just so crammed into books that you don't have time for a social life or anything else like that. And they'd be completely right in those remarks, but it doesn't really it doesn't help it doesn't help the confidence or anything like that if you're called that sort of thing. I'm sure in terms of backhanded compliments are given, I'm sure on at least one occasion I've told someone that's a really smart thing to say from someone so stupid or something to that effect. It's like,
I've definitely done that.
I don't think I've said it in those words, but sort of say, wow, that's really smart coming from you. That sort of thing.
I got a friend of mine that every so often he'll say like a really funny joke, and it's like, I mean, every so often in the sense of being like every like 4 years.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, that was a funny one. And like that kind of thing, or like, yeah, that's pretty smart coming from you, or something like, yeah. Sometimes you don't mean it. Sometimes it's just the way that you phrase something where you say, your hair looks really good today. And it's like, well, that implies it doesn't look good.
Yeah, no,
days,
yeah, it's
and,
that sort of. I've probably done those ones quite a lot.
Yeah. That shirt looks really good on you. You should get more like that. Okay, well, shit. Is the rest of my clothes awful or whatever? And they're like, no, I'm just saying that you're fat. I mean, what? Oh, crap. Like,
I take those things like, all the time at work, because like at my work where I'm as a copywriter, I'm just producing stuff every now and again, and someone reads over my work and says, wow, that's really good. I think, well, surely you should be saying that after everything that I do. Otherwise, you're just suggesting that this one's really good, but the other stuff I do is just like average.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to take everything like that.
Yeah. What is the silliest thing that you've seen someone get upset over? The first one that I thought of is somebody calling me up, bawling their eyes out to say, I had the worst day ever. I hate everybody that I work with. I forgot my lunch. And this person decided to say to me, I can share half of my sandwich with you if you want.
And they got upset over it.
They got upset, crying their eyes out. Who fucking does that? They did that to rub it in my face. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, we need to break up. Like, you know, that's kind of thing.
Oh, it's that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, that's an X.
Yeah.
So my go-to for that is always like, what's the silliest thing you've ever seen somebody get upset over? Somebody else being nice and offering to share their lunch with them. The fucking gall of that person, you know.
In the time that I've known you, you seem to have a really bad taste before Caroline goes.
Maybe you're just hearing about the same person.
Is this the same as the Didn't you have like a tree hugger one?
A tree hugger.
No, the one that like wasn't there one that like refused to watch you eat or something along those lines? Or something that they didn't like it when you watched them eat or something like that. Maybe I'm confusing with someone else.
Yeah, it must be somebody else. If they did, I'm sure I ate in front of them anyway and said fuck it, but I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, I'm sure I just hear a lot of like bad exes and stuff like that. But I've heard.
Let's put it this way: all exes were bad in some regard, and that's why they're exes.
Yeah. I can't like pinpoint anything in particular. I know there was stuff that I did especially as a kid, because as a kid you just get upset over everything. I think I got up. There was one thing that I did. Ashamed to admit it on this side of thing, but especially as a kid, I was about 10 or 11, so I should know better at this point. So I got upset because we were playing like a soccer match, and somebody either passed me a ball to score a goal, or they scored the goal themselves, and I got upset with them because we scored but I didn't score it. So I was.
It's like such an ego trip.
No, it was really bad because I actually beat them up afterwards. So it's like, because at that point in time, I'm now a pretty much short arse. I'm much smaller than most of the people that I know, but I'm 5'8", and most of the people that I know are like well into the like low 6 foot. And at that point in time, though, I'd had a growth spurt, so I was bigger than most people, so I could not get away with it, but I would be doing that kind of stuff more often, especially to this guy, because this guy was a short ass until he turned 14 or 15, then he ended up outgrowing me, so...
Now he's like, who's scoring the goals now, motherfucker? And you're like, I'm sorry.
It's all right. We're still friends. He's one of the few people that I still keep in touch with after school as well, so that's funny how these things work out.
That's another thing too, is there's probably a billion stories of some weird things out there where you just like, you see people out at the store getting upset over something ridiculous, and people get upset over the stupidest things.
Yeah. It's, like you say, it's the oversensitive culture nowadays.
And just crazy people.
Oh yeah, obviously there's tons of crazy people.
Yeah, you could literally, any day of the week, you can, again, like I said earlier, you can say to somebody like, nice day out today, and it could be like, I'm gonna rip your eyes out because that's the worst thing you could have ever said to me. And you're like, whoa, geez, I'm just saying that, like, the sun looks nice. Like, you know.
I'm pretty sure there was a girl at our school that got like in, I think we were about 15 or 16, who got broken up with before we went into an assembly and had like just a full-blown panic attack as a result of it. So it's like, yeah, I'm like, that you have these sort of situations where people just take things a bit too seriously, especially like a relationship between at school age. It's nowadays you look back at it and probably doesn't bat an eyelid, but at that point in time, it just feels like your whole world is crumbling down.
Yeah. Or like, especially like the high school age where you're into somebody and maybe they're like, you know, at a party and they're talking to somebody else, and it's just kind of like, oh my god, everything's so much worse. I'm having the worst day in the world because this person didn't compliment me on this or whatever. Yeah, people get upset over every little thing. That's my go-to story, is the lunch story. That's the first thing I think of. I want to know any of the other suggestions everybody else has. What's the silliest thing you've seen somebody get upset over? Drop a comment below. A reminder of that. What is your least favorite color? Yellow and orange. Not a fan of either of them.
Yellow's not a great one. I'd probably go yellow and brown, probably. I wouldn't say orange because orange is maybe I would typically say, but it's my mum's favorite color, so I feel bad about like saying that I'm not a fan of it. So, but yellow definitely is probably the least one. I like gold, I just don't like yellow.
Yeah, that's the thing. Gold's awesome, but yellow is just kind of obnoxious.
Yeah, it's just a bit too bright.
Meanwhile, I like white, which is the brightest one, but it's clean.
Well, it's got no color. That's the thing. White is the absence of color.
I always thought that it would be really interesting if you had those sets of crayons that are like, you know, like all these different shades of blue and all these different shades of pink and all that. If you just added a clear one, just to fuck with people, that'd be so great.
Oh yeah, that'd be. Yeah, like the thing that you write in invisible ink and you write in invisible crayon. That's the like Spy Kids.
Yeah. For the final question, I just want to know your expectations coming to the final stretch. Are you the year for wrestling in general? Are you excited, nervous, or scared? Do you think AEW will beat NXT in the Wednesday Night Wars? Will the ratings finally improve? Everything along those lines. I am cautiously excited. I'm very nervous about a lot of things.
In terms of some of these other questions, I mean, in general, I'm pretty stoked for the whole thing. I just want to see. I want to see what AEW can bring to the table. That would be the most interesting thing, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Even if it's bad, if it's different, that might still be interesting. And just see the fact that Impact's now going to be on a major well, not a major one, but a more prominent TV network where there's changes made with them. New Japan's obviously exciting towards the end of the year, but it doesn't really kick off until the start of the new year, so it's more just a build up towards that side of things at the moment. WWE, NXT, it's all a fair amount of interesting. I don't expect the ratings to improve yet, and if they do, it'll be marginal to start with. And yeah, just overall excited, looking forward to seeing how things happen towards the end of the year. Not going to be too down on it so far.
I don't expect the ratings to improve. I think that they're going to get a bump for SmackDown for the first couple of weeks, and then it's going to just kind of level off to the way that it was already. Raw, I think it's going to stay basically the same way that it was. NXT, maybe they stay the same as they were the last week, and maybe they grow a little bit, but I don't think AEW is going to be doing this massive big change that people are expecting. Some people are like kind of looking at this as being like, this is going to be the savior of pro wrestling, and suddenly they're going to get like a 5.0 rating. It's not happening. Like, they're going to get the 0 point something range or the 1 point something range or whatever, and competition's going to be good, at least for the creativity side of things, and maybe that gets more eyes on the product, and maybe that gets more positives that come along the way, or it could backfire, and it could be that WWE and other companies like AEW start trying to tout things like their celebrity involvement, and suddenly by the time December rolls along, we're getting a lot more special guest host of this episode of Raw is this celebrity, because the celebrities want to be a part of WWE, and haha, you don't have them for AEW, and that could be a real pain in the ass. And all the chaos can catch up to WWE at some point, because they're changing a lot just on a whim, and we've seen this past in its entire year now of random changing things, and some of them have worked really, really well and been very entertaining, like the 24/7 championship, and some of them have been the stupidest changes that meant nothing at all. So I'm not confident that this is going to all work out. I'm confident that everything's going to get busier, and that's not necessarily good, because then that means that I'm doing more work and maybe not necessarily even for more money, and then that's harder to do, and that's harder to swing as far as timing and scheduling and keeping track of everything and all that. But there is a lot of potential, and if everything starts working towards people competing and trying to be better, and they actually are being better instead of just trying to throw some gimmicks out there to be lazy about being better, then by the time January comes along, we could be in a real big boom of pro wrestling, and that could be a lot of fun for 2020. But I still think the rest of this year is going to be a lot of experimentation, and that comes with trial and error, and you can't ignore the error when it comes to that.
Yeah,
So I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm scared.
I doubt AEW is going to hit the ground running as many people expected, but the most interesting thing that I'm looking forward to in their regards is, do they end the year on an upward trend? Whether that's in regards to ratings or the quality of their products or anything along those lines. I want to see, at least by the end of the year, that they're going in a positive trajectory. Because if it's already on the downside, then that sets you like a really bad 2020, at least gives you like a foreshadowing for a bad 2020 ahead. Whereas if they're doing well, and in that regard, if WWE's doing well and NXT's doing well and any other promotion's doing well, then that's a good sign. Just don't want to like count my chickens before the end of 2019, because this year is insane. So,
and next week's going to be a big thing when it comes to the ratings too, because if AEW does a spectacular rating, and it's not going to happen, but let's just throw the number out there. If they do a 3.0, that's going to make WWE go, God damn it, what do we do? And they'll most likely not maintain that. But even in that regard, if they do that and NXT put all their championships up against them and they still beat the hell out of them, and then they do that the same next week with like a 2.9 or something like that, WWE is going to start panicking, and they're going to start doing some weird changes, and you're going to see like, well, we're going to have people from Raw pop up on NXT and like all this type of crazy crap. That could be a lot of fun, or it could be a lot of annoying stuff. But if AEW makes their debut, which should arguably be their biggest night, and they get like an 0.1 rating or something that's just like the complete opposite, WWE is going to go, told you, and they're going to get lazy again, because they're going to go, well, we have no competition. And then everything's going to just be bland, and I don't know. I mean, the first, I think, month is going to be, let's see what happens, but that first week, next week, if it's really good or if it's really bad, that's going to change a lot.
yeah, I would pretty much agree with that. I just don't know. Based on what I'm projecting for these ones, I think in terms of AEW and NXT, we'll have to wait for a month or maybe even 2 months to really see what the patterns emerging of which one's winning out over the other.
And that's going to affect Raw, and it's going to affect SmackDown, and it's, SmackDown could be really doing really well on Fox, and they might have figured out the formula, or that might end up being a real big disappointment.
I mean, not if they keep calling all their masked wrestlers Nacho Libre or something like that.
Yeah, then they might have some problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm very nervous. I still don't know what all the scheduling is going to be like with all this stuff, and that even affects the podcast, so that's going to be tough to figure that out, because if Wednesdays become harder and harder to do things, then maybe we move that to another day. Maybe we just write that off as being like Wednesday's a work day, and that, do that the whole time. Well, every day's a work day, but you know what I mean. And like, that might play into something. I don't really know. And that's the part where I'm nervous, because when you start changing things, you never know if you're changing it for the better or changing it for the worse, or it's a lateral change. But as much as there's something to be scared about, there's a lot of excitement potential, because these things could be really good. And we might look back in a couple of months when we're heading towards WrestleMania and be like, man, that stretch from October 4th or October 2nd or whatever we pinpointed at, ever since then, everything changed, and good Lord, everything's so much better. So, thumbs up, potentially, thumbs down, potentially, thumbs somewhere in the middle. We're just going to have to see. But those are our questions, or those are our answers for your questions for September 2019. If you didn't get a chance to send in a question, or we didn't touch on one of the ones that you had submitted that we put on the back burner, submit it for next month. You can do that pretty much now, and I can backlog them, and we can get around to that when we get around to it. But if you want to start thinking of some other ones and cook up some other questions that you want to send to us, just anytime you want to, send an email or tag something on YouTube or send a tweet, something like that. You can do that at Fanboys Anonymous, not Fanboys Anonymous, at Facebook and Twitter at Smark Out Moment. Obviously, the YouTube is the page that you're going to leave your comments and stuff, so that's another great way to say, hey, I got another mailbag question on this kind of thing. But the email is the best method for me to keep track of, so head on over to the page on smarkoutmoment.com, send that email, and we'll get around to that next month. October's mailbag is happening, I'm not 100% for sure, because we have Crown Jewel, which they might not even necessarily call Crown Jewel, but that's either like October 31st or November 1st. I don't know how we're going to factor in that kind of stuff, because that changes with that. But I'm assuming that we'll probably do the mailbag around the 23rd of October. So you got a couple weeks. You got about a month. So keep that in mind, everybody. That'll be after the draft and all that stuff. So we'll talk about draft things when we get to that. Anything else you want to toss out as far as plugs, or as far as just other things to say, Callum?
Well, the biggest plug for me, obviously, is 2001: A Wrestling Odyssey. Got some nice comments and feedback on our September edition, so thanks very much to everyone who's listened to it and left their remarks about it. It's where me and Rob go back to the year 2001, review all the news and events that were taking place in that time. So the September edition, we covered the famous SmackDown episode post 9/11, as well as Unforgiven 2001, and the October edition will be coming out sometime next month. We'll be covering No Mercy 2001, as well as All-Star Wrestling. Is it All? I'm trying to remember the even name of it, but it's the Australian promotion that takes place in October. Their big show, The Inception. So we'll be covering that as well. Any other bits and pieces? Well, just check out all the articles, all the weekly stuff on smarkoutmoment.com, including the Power Rankings, which is the one that I contribute. And I probably won't get featured on the next episode of Raw and SmackDown, but fingers are crossed, obviously. And
that'd be great if they started plugging those Power Rankings instead of their own.
They didn't price their current Power Rankings or anything like that. I'm sure they used to do that on WWE.com. I assume they don't do it anymore.
I don't know, actually.
Yeah. But and also you can follow me on Twitter at Wikimeister14.
And obviously Rob is not here today, but if you want to follow Rob, he is at Dude Felice on Twitter, and he's got all his stuff all over the place. And I've got my stuff all over the place where you can find the Bleacher Report content on Bleacher Report, the wrestling news content on the Wrestling News, Ring Report, and who knows what else I got around that. But if you just start following all over the social medias on all these different accounts, you will just see plenty of activity, and hopefully you can check it out and you enjoy it. And that's what we're trying to do here. So let's keep that ball rolling, everybody. And that is going to continue on with the hot tags for next week. And then after that, we're going to get into Hell in a Cell predictions. And we're not going to do anything special for the AEW show or the SmackDown debut on Fox or anything like that. We're essentially just going to treat that as like a thing because there's way too much happening next week. Hell in a Cell is a pay-per-view. We had to do the pay-per-view stuff. We're going to focus on that more. But obviously, we will tie in some of the discussion on that in the pay-per-view predictions and on the pay-per-view post-show. So stay tuned for those things and check out everything else that's happening on smarkoutmoment.com throughout the week. Just subscribe on these different platforms and you'll be alerted. So that's going to do us in for this one. Thank you for listening to this, everybody. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.